my name is Hannah Iezzoni. I'm a design engineer with Keller North America and the chair of DFI's Augured Cast-in-Place and Drill Displacement Pile Technical Committee. Welcome to DFI's podcast.
Hi, I'm Tim Siegel. I'm standing here with Adam Blazejowski on the site of soil mixing in San Francisco. How's it going, Adam?
It's going good. I'm glad you got my name right there.
All right. Adam, tell me a little bit about what you're doing on this job.
All right, so today we're going to be observing deep soil mixing columns being installed. Basically, it's an auger put on top of a typical bower rig, and as it's cutting through the soil, it's injecting cementitious slurry, and it's creating a soil cement column basically for supporting slabs.
And we're going to mitigate seismic-induced compression, right?
That's correct. That was part of the design package we did. Calculations required us to prove that the deep soil mixing columns are going to mitigate the seismic compression, which was one of the controlling parameters for this project.
How long have you been working on this job?
I'd say about 5 to 6 months with all the revisions and back and forth. You know, there's a lot of players on this project, including the hospital as well as the governing authority of Oshkosh. So there's a lot of key players, and that was a big part of this project, is communicating with them and making sure we're delivering exactly what they're wanting. So there is a lot of communications and on projects like this, it does take a little longer than you'd expect.
But today's the day. We're about
day
3
one.
minutes away from beginning soil mixing. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Hi, I'm Silas Nichols, Federal Highway Administration, and I want to commend the Women in Deep Foundations on 10 great years. I was there at the beginning, and I find that a committee like this, representing what is an underrepresented group in deep foundation construction, is extremely important. I myself am an underrepresented minority, Black, whether Hispanic or other. Women in deep foundations tends to represent all of us by attacking topics and challenges that we find every day in the community. And I think it's really, really important that the future of the Women in Deep Foundations continues to grow and evolve to meet these sorts of challenges and the needs of underrepresented people in the industry, and to attract more and more diversity into Deep Foundations, the Deep Foundations Institute, and the Deep Foundations community.
Hello everyone, my name is Tugce Baser, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Wow, that was a mouthful. So here we are at Kansas City for the Geotechnical Geo Institute section conference, annual conference, and this is where we presented our projects and where we introduced our research work and etc. So today I talked about measurement while drilling project that we've been pursuing with Illinois Department of Transportation. It's been a great pleasure working with IDOT folks, Scott Castle and Bradley Hessing. Hi there. And with measurement while drilling, we are trying to improve the subsurface characterization especially for the Illinois basin, Illinois subsurface, ultimately for bridge foundation design. So today I introduced a little bit about measurement while drilling concept, what we do when you're instrumenting a drill rig, and what are the best practices, and also what are the practices for the state of Illinois as well. And we've been working very closely with IDOT folks to collect data from the field, from those drilling work, and gather data, and we take it to our office, and then we apply innovative tools or innovative computational tools such as artificial intelligence and more specifically machine learning. And my presentation today also included how to use machine learning models to predict SPTN values, exciting, right? QU values, and also for the soil type when you're doing measurement while drilling. So our results, our analysis, the results from the analysis showed us pretty good correlations, and sometimes we felt like, oh my god, this is too good to be true. We have to look into this a little bit more. But I shared my experiences working with especially with IDA, those site investigation efforts, and also the data analysis part. This has been a great experience for me, and also I had the opportunity to introduce MWD user group by DFI, and I've made a lot of contacts and friends here and who are going to join our users group. So, and we may see those people in our monthly meetings very soon. So I'm very excited, and I am glad that I made the trip here to Kansas City, which has been a little bit short trip, but it's fine. We are going back home later today, in actually 20 minutes. So, what else? Did I forget anything?
I think that's it.
That's great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Will Shaffer. I'm currently a Ph.D. student at University of California, Irvine, under Ann Lemnitzer. I graduated with my undergrad in 2017 from Marshall University, and then went to Virginia Tech after that and worked at Dan Brown & Associates for about 5 years, and then started my Ph.D. in the fall of last year. And my Ph.D. research is investigating the deep foundation response to lateral loading and PY curves, and the pile type and moment curvature of that pile, the impact that has on the PY curves themselves. So we're doing some full-scale testing at the UCI soil pit testing facility to investigate these things.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much, man.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jeff Segar. I am a Chief Geostructural Engineer at GSI. I am the Anchored Earth Retention Committee co-chair for the Deep Foundations Institute. Sebastian asked me just to give you a brief update of some of the things that we're doing in this committee. And we're doing a lot of exciting things right now. At our last meeting, Tony Marinucci and Ava Learmarkey gave a presentation of the results of DFI Committee Fund Project Supported initiative, where we had them study the deflections of supportive excavation systems. So what they did is they went through a whole series of a literature review. This is our first phase, and now they're presenting the results of all this stuff that they've found with technical papers and stuff like that, showing the common deflections associated with different types of supportive excavation systems. Another thing that we're doing is a lot of studies on the Type 1L cement grout that is impacting the industry. So the cement industry is moving from a Type 1L cement that can have up to about 5% limestone, moving up to a Type 1L that can have about 15% limestone. And we're very curious to know how this is going to affect geotechnical construction. So the DFI Committee Project Fund has funded a research study led by Helen Robinson to look at bench study testing of some of the grout mixes, and along with some pull testing of strand anchors. And there's different parts of the limestone content that we're controlling for in that study. We just recently got approval for another study through the Committee Project Fund to study the ASTM A9181 testing, where you put basically a piece of 7-wire strand into a casing, you grout it, and you pull it. Now, I made a mistake here. The study that Helen Robinson is doing is funded through the ADSC side of our joint committee. This strand anchor study is funded through the DFI committee side. So ultimately, a lot of things going on that are very exciting right now and very impactful to the industry at large.
Morning, everybody. I'm Michael Bennett, a geotechnical project engineer at Gannett Fleming in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Outside of work, I enjoy studying and collecting pieces from geotechnical history, aka geohistory, and today I'll share some items from my collection which are tied to a watershed year for geotech, 1948. So by then, the Allies' joy over their victory in World War II just a few years earlier had long since faded. Internationally, the world order was changing, age-old empires were crumbling, colonies were gaining independence. For instance, that year Israel became a sovereign nation, and Gandhi was killed by a religious fanatic in India, which had gained its independence only the previous summer. And the Cold War and its contours were also coming into focus that year. The USSR was lowering an iron curtain, as Churchill put it, across Eastern Europe, while the US was helping rebuild Western Europe through the Marshall Plan. The US, the UK, and France also checked the Soviets in West Berlin when the USSR tried to encircle that using a year-long supply airlift. And times were changing in the United States that year as well. World War II had really jolted many Americans out of long-held perspectives, and that genie couldn't be put back into the bottle. And the change was particularly noticeable in the long-running struggle for the civil rights of black Americans, because in 1948 President Truman integrated the U.S. military. Plus, with his support, the Democrats added their first ever civil rights plank to their platform for that year's presidential election. That led segregationist Democrats to bolt and run their own ticket, the Dixiecrats they called themselves, and some hard-left Democrats, while not opposed to civil rights, bolted the party for separate reasons and formed the Progressive Party ticket. And so most of the elites and people who knew Washington projected a sure triumph that fall for Republican nominee Thomas Dewey, but Truman shocked the nation with an upset win. Notably, the win didn't technically put Truman back into the White House because the building was so dilapidated it needed a total rebuild, and the president and his family ended up spending most of his term living across the street while the White House was gutted and renovated. So against this backdrop, three huge geohistorical developments played out in 1948, and the first was late that June in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, where the International Society for Soil Mechanics and Foundation Engineering, ISSM-FE, now ISSM-GE, held the second International Conference on Soil Mechanics and Foundation Engineering. They picked the location because Rotterdam had been really damaged during World War II. The Dutch government wanted to showcase the city's resiliency. And the event included engineers from all over the world, including on both sides of the Cold War. And ISSM-GE has made the papers from the 7-volume conference proceedings available free of charge on its website. At the time of the conference, though, the internet was decades and decades away, and the proceedings were bound and printed. And one of my first geohistorical purchases in November 2020 was of volumes 1 to 6. Here we go. Gives you an idea of what that looks like. I've been looking for volume 7 ever since, but I haven't found one for sale yet, so if you're looking to sell a copy, hit me up. These proceedings are packed with heavy hitters: Terzaghi, Casagrande, Peck, Skempton, and important geo-developments, most notably the validation of the phi=0 concept for saturated cohesive soils in undrained loading. Then, across the English Channel from Rotterdam, the inaugural issues of a new technical journal named Geotechnical were published in London in 1948. Volume 1, Issue 1, came out in June, just as the Second International Conference was getting underway, and the journal was initially so cash-strapped that its founders had to fund the early issues with an overdraft on one of their bank accounts. And the magazine is, of course, on far firmer financial footing these days, and the geotechnical advances, which have debuted on its pages in the last 3/4 of a century, are too numerous for me to go through in detail. But there are two particularly noteworthy ones that I'd like to mention: bearing capacity factors, introduced by Jeffrey Meyerhoff, and pore pressure coefficients, introduced by Alex Skempton. So a couple years ago, I picked up volumes 1 through 12 of Geotechnical from a book dealer in Cleveland, and one of the issues I received, was volume 1, number 1. Here we go. So only when these volumes arrived did I learn that they're from the Los Angeles office library of Dames and Moore, which has long since been subsumed into AECOM. And then finally, across the pond from London and Rotterdam, two huge geotechnical textbooks rolled off U.S. presses in 1948, and those were Fundamentals of Soil Mechanics by Don Taylor and Soil Mechanics and Engineering Practice by Carl Terzaghi and Ralph Peck. There wasn't a whole lot of love lost between those two teams of authors, because Taylor had based fundamentals on the notes he'd used for over 15 years in teaching soil mechanics at MIT, and he had inherited those notes, or the original version of them, from his predecessor in the job, who was none other than Terzaghi. So Taylor had extensively revised and expanded on Terzaghi's notes. He even gave Terzaghi a shout-out in the preface of Fundamentals, saying that his notes had directly led to the book that Taylor had written. But Terzaghi still seems to have regarded them as his work to some degree, and the citations in the books reflect his perspective, because Fundamentals includes 10 citations of Terzaghi's works, not to mention those preface remarks, and Engineering Practice includes 0 citations of Taylor's work. So I acquired Fundamentals during my Virginia Tech days, and then I picked up Engineering Practice late in 2020. And here we have Engineering Practice. Here we have Fundamentals. And this copy of Fundamentals actually has the original owner's syllabus taped into the back. You can see that here. And it's from the University of Idaho for the spring 1950 semester. So that's all for today's installment of Geohistory. I hope you enjoyed the items, their history, and their historical context. And until next time, this is Michael Bennett, signing off for DFI.
On behalf of DFI, we hope you enjoyed this episode. The views, information, and opinions expressed during Deep Foundation Institute's podcasts are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of DFI. DFI does not verify or take responsibility for the accuracy of the information contained, nor does it warrant that the information contained herein is suitable for any general or specific use. The podcast is available for private, non-commercial use only. Editing, modification, or redistribution of this podcast is prohibited.